Good morning, Delaware. I love hearing Fred's voice.
I know.
It just makes me so happy. I am your host this morning, Nicole Fowles, with my co-host,
Molly Meyers, LaBadie.
Yes. I was like, are we co-hosts? Are we equal hosts?
What do you want to be?
You my assistant.
I am 100% happy to be someone's assistant.
That would be fun.
Absolutely.
We have Gage Tellas on the board today, trying to get us up on that Facebook.
Good morning. They always say there could be more than one than me.
Yeah. We are like totally in fall mode here. I have all of my fall colors on with my leggings and my reds, and you have
Halloween.
A big old pumpkin shirt on.
Big pumpkin shirt.
Your
and
Frankenstein
I've got
earrings.
My 1996 Doc Martens from college.
That's awesome. It's just me and Molly today, so lucky you. We are going to be talking about.
This is going to get off the rails real fast.
Real fast, I know. We've got that fun Manic Friday energy.
We really do. I need more coffee though.
I have some, but I won't share because I'm still getting over my junk. My junk is still like I'm like 92%.
Yeah,
getting there.
You're getting there.
That upper respiratory stuff, if you get it, God bless you, because it stays with you like a month. It's not fun. So second half of the show today, we're going to be talking about, we met Nick Offerman on Tuesday.
We met Nick Offerman.
Oh my gosh.
And we met little Sebastian.
Little Sebastian.
It was the highlight of my life.
We have to give big credit to our friends and pseudo-frenemies, Westerville Public Library.
I can't even call them frenemies. I just adore them.
They really did an amazing
They
job.
really are amazing. You know, the fun thing people don't realize about libraries, like they'll come in and they'll be like, I went to Westerville or I went to Worthington. And like they'll say it with like shame. And I'm like, you got books.
Yeah, we don't
thrilled.
care.
We love it when you're using the other libraries.
Lifelong learning. It's all wonderful. We all share. It's great. Ohio's the best.
It is the best. It is the best.
So second half of the show, stay tuned. We're going to be talking a lot about Nick Offerman. First half of the show, we'll do kind of some of our normal spiel and talk about some of the things we're reading, watching, listening to. So Molly, or even crazy place we visited. What do you have for us today?
Today, I'm actually going to talk about a book that supports kind of one of the programs that we have coming up this week.
Yeah.
I read a book called Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. And by read, I mean listen, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
And Atul is actually, he grew up in Athens, Ohio. So immediately I was kind of pulled in because I could kind of relate. You know, he grew up in Appalachia. So that's always a draw for me. But this book is called Being Mortal, Medicine and What Matters in the End. And it's about the choices we don't always realize we have at the end of our lives. And it's a heavy book, but it was freeing to me in a sense. Some of you may know about 2 years ago, I lost my father to ALS, which is a monster of a disease. And I found myself reading this book thinking how I could have talked to the doctors differently and how in the future, I think I'm going to approach talking to doctors when you're looking at the end of your life. So with my, hopefully, my mother's going to outlive us all.
Right.
She's healthier than anyone in the world.
Yes.
And pretty amazing. But when we hit those points in our lives, what can we do? And asking questions about how you want to live versus what we need to do to extend that 2 or 3 months. 2 or 3 months being miserable versus 2 or 3 months where you're in control of your decisions. And we're all different and comfortable.
Yeah, because you do lose a bit of control, but you can keep comfort.
And some people their comfort is just the people around them. They can handle pain. They can handle, and some people, they're happy if I can watch TV and drink a beer. If I can do that to the end of my life. And, I started thinking about what are those things that I would be happy with. And honestly, for me, it's, can my nieces and nephews come and entertain me some? Can I, enjoy a nice cold beer?
Yeah.
And, just be with those. Can I occasionally go outside? I think for me, being inside all the time, I'm definitely an outside kind of person. But he did such a great job talking about how we have options, but we need to learn what the questions are we need to ask to have our options.
I was just having a conversation with one of our coworkers recently, and she has a friend who's going through some medical issues. And I was saying that, yes, it's difficult for the person going through the issues, of course. It's also very difficult for the caregiver because you are an advocate. You are the advocate, and you are that person's 24/7 health nurse basically, and advocate nurse. And when my husband went through some health issues, I lived with him at the Cleveland Clinic for 5 days because I had to be the one who made sure that the nursing team was keeping his care consistent, because they have to change shifts because they have lives too.
Yes.
But I don't change shifts. I stay the shift.
And we're all different in what we want to do. Some of us want to be that caregiver, right? That's something that I feel like is kind of natural for me. In college, my friends would kind of call me mom. Molly would slip into mom very, very easily, because if you got sick, I'd show up with your tea and, your crackers, and make sure you had your blankets on. And, so it's about sort of what we can handle too as caregivers. Yeah. At the end, my mom was getting really tired, and what could we do to help her? It's just a great book. I don't know if I could have read it right there at the end with Dad.
Right.
I think it's really healthy to read it at a time. Here, I'm 2 years out of this experience. And I think it has really, this was the time for me, either way before or after. Right. I don't know if I would suggest this unless
if
you're
in
really
the middle.
looking for answers.
Right. This is Atul Gawande, and what's it called again?
Being Mortal.
Being Mortal.
Medicine and what matters in the end. And the reason I really wanted to talk about it too, I'm going to jump just a little bit ahead to talk about a program coming up.
You may.
We have a program called from our End of Life series, After Death, Natural Alternatives at the Orange Branch, coming up 6:30 to 7 on, and now I think I've lost my page on the date.
November.
I'm super good at this. November
2nd, Wednesday,
Thank
November
you.
2nd.
You're awesome.
Yeah.
This is why I am not allowed to be here alone. But it's going to be our end-of-life doula, Jackie Mann, discussing burial options in this end-of-life series, which leads to another book I love, which is Stiff.
Yeah, that's the
which
best.
We can talk about another time.
Mary Roach is
oh
my
my gosh,
hero.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
I still want to be on a body farm.
Well, I think this is a great topic. It is dark, but
Yes.
I've always kind of been into it. Ask my parents.
It's dark, but I have to say I felt light when I was done with it. Like there are more options than I thought about, So the first half of the book felt a little dark because he was talking about situations. The second half, I think it's how we look at it. For me, it was uplifting.
Well, I'm going to turn it to a short story that I listened to this week. The short story is by none other than Gillian Flynn.
Oh, I love
who
Gillian Flynn.
Wrote, what's the most popular one?
She did. It was the most messed up book I've ever read. Gone Girl.
Yeah, I was like, why is it escaping
I
me
didn't
now?
know anything about it when I read it.
Right.
Like I went in blind.
Yeah, that's the best way to go into that book. So Gillian Flynn, it's a short story. It's called The Grownup. It's only an hour long. Listen, and it's read by the incredible Julia Whalen. And if you go on Libby, you can get it today. It's lots of things are accessible. It's kind of a horror story.
I love it.
It's R-rated, so I'll preface it with that. There's a woman who the book focuses on, or the story focuses on, who basically works in some mature situations, and then she transitions to being a person who reads auras.
Ooh.
And she's a little bit intuitive, but maybe she's also a bit of a con artist. And she talks about how, like, she's always been about the con. Her mom really raised her kind of as a con artist. She's now on her own, kind of doing the con too. She gets a client who she is like in it for the long con with. And she's like, oh, your aura's really dark. I can really tell that things are happening at home. I probably should come to your house and do some home cleansings.
Ooh.
And when she gets to the house, there are some super creepy things happening there. The mom is basically saying, like, that the house, there's like red dripping down the walls.
Ooh.
There's my oldest son, he's my stepson, and he's very disturbed, and I just don't know what's wrong with him, and maybe he's been possessed by the house. Yes. And and she says, and I don't trust this house, and everything's been wrong since we got here. And as you get into this short story towards the end, you start to wonder maybe who's conning who.
Ooh. And wait, I need to go back to the fact, did you say this is an hour book?
Yeah.
So everybody who is like me and you're staring down your Goodreads.
Yes.
I went with that, like, read 100 books.
Yes.
Why do I do this to myself? So an hour long. Let's all take note. What's the name of this again?
It's called The Grownup. It's by Gillian Flynn. It is a short story, and you can check it out on its own. It's not part of a larger compendium or anything like that. And so you can check it out. I got it on Libby. Through the Ohio Digital Library with my library card. And I was meeting a friend for dinner in Easton last night, and so I listened to half of it on the way there and half of it on the way back, and now I'm done.
That's such a satisfying feeling.
Very
too.
satisfying, yeah. But like I said, it is R-rated, so don't listen to it with the kids.
That's good to know.
Yes, indeed. So we will take a break, and when we come back on the second half of the show, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about the one, the only, Ron Swanson, Nick Offerman. Thank you, Gage. And thank you to our friends. They're always really wonderful friends. Yeah, they
do so much for us.
I've always said I want to be Karen Cowan when I grow up because her energy is just like
unbelievable.
It's unparalleled.
The things she gets done in this community, not just for the library.
No.
I mean, she's highly involved in the Historical Society.
All over the place. And then her kids and grandkids' lives. Wonderful things. Well, we're not here to talk about Karen Cowan, although we do love you.
And we absolutely could.
We could. We are here to talk about something that Molly and I both went to on Tuesday night, sponsored by the Westerville Public Library. We got to hear a lecture, kind of conversation from Nick Offerman.
It was amazing.
If you're wondering why you know the name Nick Offerman, it's because he was portraying the infamous Ron Swanson on the Parks and Recreation TV show that was airing on NBC
Which
for many,
is
many
my
years.
second favorite show of all time.
It's really wonderful. You can currently stream all of the seasons of that on Peacock, and you can also just come to the library and request the seasons through the library.
Leslie Knope is my spirit animal.
Yeah. She's amazing. Ron Swanson is amazing. And so we learned a lot of things about him on Tuesday night.
Okay, I think he and I are new best friends. He just doesn't know. Like, I've never met someone I want to sit around a campfire, drinking a beer, and just talking with.
Yeah. He's very in touch with nature. So let's preface it by he was in town because he is a published author. And the book that he was there promoting was called Where the Deer and the Antelope Play, the pastoral, oh gosh, my print is too small and I can't read it. The pastoral reservations of the observations of the ignorant American who loves to walk outside. Did I get it right?
You were close.
Yes.
It is the pastoral observations of one ignorant American who loves to walk outside.
There we go. I'm like, my print is too small.
How did you get such small print on that?
I don't know.
You gave me a huge printed sheet.
I did. I'm sorry. I know.
If you guys don't know, she takes care of me and makes sure I have the material I need to sound intelligent in the morning.
Yes. But so he had a conversation on stage with Matt Barnes, and he talked about the book a lot, and he kind of said that the book was divided into 3 parts.
Yes.
And he describes what was the first part? He describes it as kind of, I think it's almost like a love story to like America's national parks.
It was, yes. And a hike he went with some friends.
Yes.
There were 3 of them that went on a hike.
His 3 amigo buddies. And the second part of the book, then he goes overseas
to a shepherd.
Yes, and he becomes a farmer, a sheep farmer.
Yes, and even helps give birth to a little lamb.
Yes,
that's so awesome.
And then the third part of the book, he said he's behind deadline, and he's trying to figure out how he's going to finish up the story. And he basically comes up with the idea that COVID hits, and he and his wife, Megan Mullally. They decide that they are going to purchase an Airstream and
which is so awesome.
Drive cross country to his roots, which are in Illinois, and her roots, which I think were Wisconsin.
I think so. I think they're both.
Yeah, and so both kind of Midwest.
Yeah,
and so they decide that they want to spend the holidays with their family. They want to do it in a safe way, and so they drive their Airstream across.
Like a life dream of mine.
Yeah.
Like I really think they should be my new best friends. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. It is true.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting. One of the things that he talked about was he realizes his own conflict in his life as a person of Hollywood, and the things that are required of that. For example, he said that week alone, he had a day in New Jersey, then he flew to Columbus, then he was flying to Arizona. That's a lot of carbon emissions.
And he really believes in trying to take care of the earth.
Right.
And there is that point that was humbling, and I appreciate it because, it's the same feeling I think a lot of us have.
Right.
I'm trying to do the right things, but I have to drive 30 minutes to work.
Right. And he was saying that basically he was like, I try to do what I can. I try to know where my food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I try to make sure that I am purchasing food that I know, that it is going to be sustainable for our environment.
Uses his own water bottle instead of using, plastic one-use plastics,
Right.
and
But then he hops into his Airstream that gets 8 miles a gallon.
yes.
I thought that was very fun. But it is. It was very reality based, his admissions.
He's one of those who hasn't gotten caught up in his own Hollywood hype.
Mm-hmm.
He still loves to make furniture with his own hands.
Yes.
And I loved he also talked about
his wood
but
shop.
I couldn't have afforded that wood shop without the life that Megan and I have had.
Right.
And so I try to treat the people that I hire to work in the wood shop with me equitably and make sure that they're being paid fairly and treated well and given the things. And so, he talks about sort of that responsibility that comes with
and he's trying.
this.
Yeah.
He's trying, but he's not perfect.
Right.
Which we all need to hear.
Well, I think that the other thing that was really refreshing is if you don't know his relationship, he and his wife Megan Mullally have been married for 22 years.
Yes.
And Megan is famous from Will and Grace.
Yes.
And many other things. She has a gorgeous voice and
Hilarious person,
is
too.
The funniest person. They met, he said, when he was pre-Parks and Rec fame and she was in the middle of Will and Grace fame.
He was in an improv. I actually have read a couple of his books. I've read the book, The Greatest Love Story Ever Told, which is their love story.
Yes.
While making the puzzle of the book cover, which my husband bought because they do puzzles together. But he was in an improv group and, to him, it was just so weird. She was interested.
Right.
And I love that story.
Well, I think the refreshing thing is that he basically said, I don't joke about my wife. He was like, so many times you have stand-up
I
comedians.
kept staring at Lloyd when he said that. And he just stared back at me and I was like, well, I'm not very good either.
you have stand-up comedians who put their partners, who put their significant others into their acts and disparage them night after night on stage. And
you want to spend your whole life with this person. Like they're your everyday.
He's like, I don't do that. My queen is the person who he's like, I am happy to have dinner ready for her every night. And
he's so careful when he's talking about her foibles. Clearly he's gotten permission to talk about this thing she did that was maybe a little wacky or crazy. And it was really refreshing.
So the greatest love story ever told. After he did his speaking engagement, there were a group of us who had books that we could go in the signing line and we could get signed. And I had basically 2 questions, one question, one statement that I wanted to say to him. One was that he's in a new series that is on Peacock called The Resort, and it is a wild ride.
I have not watched it yet. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's absolutely amazing. So I wanted to tell him hey, I've seen this one. I know that it's kind of buried in Peacock, which is a paid only subscription that not many people are on. But I was like, it was awesome. And so I wanted to tell him that. But the other thing I wanted to ask him was the greatest love story ever told. I listened to as an audiobook. And I wanted to read my description from when I finished reading it in 2019. I said, when I first started listening to this, I thought, how in the world is this a physical book? Yeah. Megan and Nick were talking over each other, interjecting seamlessly, laughing, chuckling even. It felt so natural and just like I was listening to their very own marriage and romance podcast. I loved their stories, their banter, and seeing how their life inspired their art. Listen to this book. It's the only way. And so
his chuckle.
His chuckle's endearing. So I asked Nick, I said, I listened to the greatest love story ever told, and I got to know, did you speak that recording first and then transcribe it into the book? And he said they actually spoke and recorded conversations. Those conversations were transcribed into the book and cleaned up a little bit, and then they reread the book in order to create the audiobook, so with the cleaner cut.
It makes such a lovely read.
It was wonderful. And then I told him that I happened to be an Audi's judge that year, that it was submitted into
I think you need to tell people what the Audis are.
The Audi's are basically the Emmy Awards of audiobook readers and production and direction and all this. So there's best female best female reader, there's best male reader, there's best comedy book. So all of these different topics. So I told him I was a judge the year that it was submitted in the humor category, and he goes, "Oh, that's great. Do you mind me asking which one won?" And I was like, "Yours, Nick." And he was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Congratulations, you did it." 2019. So it was very, very funny. Yeah.
my experience talking to him. Of course, I walked up with my yarn because when I have to wait, I always have my knitting bag with me. So I was working on a little thing, and he's like, I love knitters. Megan's working on a scarf. And in my head, I'm like, Megan Mullally, we both knit.
We're best friends, yeah.
We're best friends now. And then I told him if I wasn't here, I probably would be in Bemis. This is normally a week that I do go to West Virginia.
Yeah.
And he and I then just talked about the beauty and the nature and I have to say, I think I really connected to him as much as I love the Best Love Story.
Yeah.
I was an outpost camp counselor. I lived in a platform tent with kids all summer long for 2 years of my life. And if it paid enough to survive the winter, I probably would still be doing it. I have never loved a job as much as, and I love my library job. Please, nobody read that one wrong, because this is the next best thing to living, teaching kids every week how to build their own campfire and make their own food. Getting comfortable with, I'm not scared of snakes and spiders. Now, mice, they are evil. So that's a whole nother level there. But, being able to appreciate sort of how things get done and slow down to figure out how you survive. We've gotten so fast. And there are days that I just wake up missing hearing the sounds of nature first thing in the morning. And now as it gets cold, I'm more and more comfortable
very happy
being
with heat inside my house.
Person. Yes.
Well, I'm sure that you and I will come back here in several weeks or maybe months, and we will have finished his one that he was promoting where the deer and the antelope
Absolutely.
play. And we can talk about that later. But I don't want to give us out of time before we talk about a couple of our upcoming events. So tomorrow, Saturday, October 29th at the Ostrander Branch Library is our El Dia de los Muertos celebration. It is 2 to 3:30 at the Ostrander Branch Library. Bring the whole family. You will really, really enjoy it. That's going to be a lot of fun.
And if you were here last week, you would have heard us talking about it.
With Lori.
With
yes.
Lori.
You can listen to that on the podcast if you want to hear more about that.
Coming up on November 3rd, too, we have the Understanding Alzheimer's and Dementia program, 11 to 12 at our Delaware Main branch. This is just a great program for people who want to know more. I feel like this is so prevalent. I got the word. Woo!
Yay.
In our world, that, what a great program to sort of have some experts come in from the Alzheimer's Association and discuss that. They're going to talk about the impact of Alzheimer's, the differences between Alzheimer's and dementia, the stages and risk factors, and current research, treatment, and resources.
And if you subscribe to our Mature Reader newsletter, which is our newsletter exclusively for people ages 55 and older, you will be getting your issue of that coming up either today or tomorrow, I want to say, and we'll be talking all about some of these upcoming programs.
Absolutely. So. And I have to end us with Happy Frankenstein Friday, everybody. It is
perfect.
National Frankenstein Friday, and I am wearing my Frankenstein earrings. So
perfect.
I don't think you can see that far on the...
I hope you have a wonderful Halloween on Monday. We will catch you again next Friday. Thank you, Molly, for being my co-host.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Gage.
My pleasure.
And thank you to the friends. We will see you in the stacks.